And he announced it on September
10th. Of the House Rules and Manual. It is not a proper parliamentary inquiry to ask the chair to indicate which side of the aisle has failed under the Speaker's guidelines to clear a unanimous consent request, as was stated. Does the gentlelady from Minnesota seek recognition?
Mr. Speaker, by the direction of the Committee on Rules, I call up House Resolution 873 and ask for its immediate consideration.
The clerk will report the resolution.
House Calendar Number 46, House Resolution 873. Resolved, that upon adoption of this resolution, it shall be in order to take from the Speaker's table the bill, H.R. 5371, making continuing appropriations and extensions for fiscal year 2026 and for other purposes, with a Senate amendment thereto, and to consider in the House without intervention of any point of order a motion offered by the Chair of the Committee on Appropriations or his designee that the House concur in the Senate amendment. The Senate amendment and the motion shall be considered as read. The motion shall be debatable for 1 hour, equally divided and controlled by the Chair and ranking minority member of the Committee on Appropriations or their respective designees. The previous question shall be considered as ordered on the motion to its adoption without intervening motion.
House will be in order. Gentlelady from Minnesota is recognized for 1 hour.
Mr. Speaker, for the purpose of debate only, I yield the customary 30 minutes to the ranking member from Massachusetts, Mr. McGovern, pending which I yield myself such time as I may consume. During consideration of this resolution, all time yielded is for the purpose of debate only. Mr. Speaker, I ask unanimous consent that all members have 5 legislative days in which to revise and extend their remarks.
Without objection.
Mr. Speaker, last night, the Rules Committee met and reported a rule providing for the consideration of the motion to concur in the Senate amendment to H.R. 5371, the Continuing Appropriations, Agriculture, Legislative Branch, Military Construction and Veterans Affairs and Extensions Act of 2026. And I am happy to say that it will end the government shutdown. The rule provides 1 hour of debate on the motion, equally divided and controlled by the Chair and the ranking member of the Committee on Appropriation or their designees. I rise in support of this rule and the underlying legislation. This bill delivers on our commitment to the American people by finally reopening the government. It delivers on the promises that we have made to our veterans, to our farmers, to our taxpayers. And let's be honest, this government shutdown was completely avoidable. On September 19th, House Republicans passed a continuing resolution that funded critical services and would have given us time to negotiate long-term solutions. It was a yes vote to keep the government open, to pay our troops, air traffic controllers, and federal employees. Every Democrat but one voted no. Every Democrat but one voted to shut the government down. This is not opinion. This is not messaging like Democrats keep trying to spin it. It is a fact that anyone can check the record. Democrats voted against a nonpartisan, clean CR, free of poison pills, and would have continued that would have continued Biden-level funding and kept the government open for negotiations. Democrats chose politics over people. They refused to support a common-sense measure, and American families paid the price. This bill restores stability to our national nutritional programs, which were put under unnecessary strain during the shutdown. It will fund WIC and SNAP, ensuring that low-income mothers and their babies have access to healthy and nutritious foods. These programs should not have been used as a bargaining chip during the shutdown. Republicans are stepping up to protect Americans and ensure these programs remain stable and funded. That is what responsible governance looks like. There are 3 appropriations bills included in this CR, put here to jumpstart our appropriations process. H.R. 5371 delivers for rural America. It provides funding for the Farm Service Agency to support our nation's farmers and ranchers. It invests in rural development programs, including funding affordable housing, rental housing assistance for low-income families and seniors in rural communities. These investments strengthen our local economies and ensure that rural communities are not left behind. For our troops, this bill demonstrates our dedication to veteran medical care, including funding for mental health, telehealth services, homelessness programs, caregiver programs, opioid misuse prevention and treatment, medical research, health care tailored to our female veterans, rural health care initiatives, and construction for new VA hospitals and veteran cemeteries. We're also funding veteran disability programs, education benefits, and employment training. Funds will be invested in military family housing projects to support those that support our troops, and in projects to improve quality of life for our service members, including hospitals and schools. Mr. Speaker, H.R. 5371 is what governing with a purpose looks like. If Democrats had joined us in September to pass a common-sense continuing resolution, we could have avoided this Democrat shutdown altogether. But they chose reckless posturing over responsibility. Now Republicans are stepping up to restore stability and reopen the government for the people. I stand in support of this bill, and I urge my colleagues to support H.R. 5371 and stay focused on what matters, serving the American people. With that, Mr. Speaker, I reserve.
Gentlelady reserves her time. Gentleman from Massachusetts is recognized.
Well, thank you, Mr. Speaker, and I want to thank the gentlelady from Minnesota for yielding me the customary time, and I yield myself such time as I may consume.
Gentleman is recognized.
It's great to see you all, Mr. Speaker. We've been looking for you guys everywhere. Where the hell have you been? Imagine my shock when I found out that you guys went home. 8 weeks of taxpayer-funded paid vacation for Republicans. And why did Republicans do it? They did it because Democrats had the audacity to ask them to try to lower people's health care costs. And while they sat on their couch for 8 weeks, we were working. We listened to people who told us their health insurance premiums are doubling and tripling. We heard from people who don't understand why you guys moved at the speed of light to give tax breaks to billionaires, but you won't lift a damn finger to extend the tax credits that help ensure people's health insurance premiums don't skyrocket. This CR, this dirty CR, which does nothing to solve the healthcare crisis, is one of the most immoral, unethical, evil things that I have ever seen happen in all my time in Congress. But it's just part of a larger pattern of indifference from Republicans that we have seen time after time after time. When the billionaire class needed another tax cut, when they wanted to funnel money to the people who write their campaign checks, boy, did Republicans deliver. They rammed through their awful, big, ugly bill in a nanosecond. What the hell is wrong with them? While regular people are struggling to pay bills, Donald Trump's net worth has gone up by $3 billion since he became president. People's health insurance premiums are doubling and tripling, but Republicans say there is no affordability crisis, even as their tariffs are costing people an extra $1,200 per year. Regular people can't afford the rent, and Republicans are letting Trump gild his bathroom and build a ballroom to host the rich and powerful elites who own the GOP. These guys are bailing out Argentina. Argentina! They're giving $40 billion to an entirely different country rather than helping the 42 million Americans who can't afford to put food on the table. And here's the clincher, Mr. Speaker. Buried in this CR is a corrupt kickback for 8 Republican senators, a $1 million payday funded by taxpayers, taken straight from the Treasury and deposited directly into their pockets. What the hell is wrong with this place? They promised to put America first. The only thing you guys put first is yourselves. Yourselves and the rich and powerful people who pull your strings behind the scenes. These people don't care. They don't have to call the insurance company because their claim was denied. They don't buy their own groceries. If you have a private jet, an offshore bank account, and an invite to Mar-a-Lago, go ahead and support your Republican representative. But if you're a regular person who feels like you're getting screwed over, if you are fed up with the status quo here in Washington that only works for those at the top, this majority is not fighting for you, but we are. Democrats are on your side, and we will fight with you every step of the way against the corruption, the lies, and the BS coming out of this administration. And we won't back this so-called deal. It's not a real solution, and it is certainly not a clean CR. This CR leaves families twisting in the wind with zero guarantee there will ever be a vote to extend tax credits to help everyday people pay for their health care. I urge my colleagues to vote no on this rule and no on the underlying legislation, and I reserve my time.
Gentleman's time is reserved. Gentlelady from Minnesota.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. And there is so much to unpack and to object to in the ranking member's opening statement, but I just want to comment on one of the issues. And I find the statement that Republicans were on vacation laughable. The idea that Republicans were on vacation during the shutdown, it's just simply false. It's false. Many of us were in Washington, or we were in our districts meeting with constituents, advancing local priorities, and staying fully engaged with our constituents in our work. Our dedication to serving the American people didn't pause during the shutdown. Whether in D.C. or back at home, which for the record, I was in both places, and many of my Republican colleagues were too, we were doing the work we were elected to do. And the real story here is not about the absence, it is about the commitment. And for Republicans, we never wavered. If the Democrats cared so much about working, they would not have shut the government down. And with that, I would like to yield 4 minutes to the gentlewoman from North Carolina, the esteemed chairwoman of the House on Rules.
Gentlelady from North Carolina, Ms. Fox, is recognized for 4 minutes.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, and I thank the gentlewoman for yielding. Mr. Speaker, psychologists have a word for the things the Democrats accuse us of: projection. Mr. Speaker, I sure hope you did not watch all 7 hours of the Democrat group therapy session last night in the Rules Committee. But if you did, you saw what a clown show it was. It was a crisp 40 degrees outside when we adjourned at around 1:30 a.m. this morning, but with the amount of hot air being spewed by Democrats in the committee room for 7 straight hours, you would have thought we were in the dead of summer. Mr. Speaker, at this point, I don't think Democrats really agree on anything. Last night and into the early hours of this morning, they showed everyone that they couldn't even agree on what they're angry about. They went off on so many tangents that it would have been a miracle if they arrived at a single coherent thought at any point during our meeting. The American people will see the exact same thing play out from them during this debate and during general debate on the floor later today. Apparently, the only thing Democrats can agree on is that the government needs to stay shut down, and that the American people need to suffer even more than they have already made them suffer. We heard from Democrats repeatedly about the millions of people they believe are going to be affected when their own temporary COVID credits sunset at the end of this year. Their own temporary COVID credits. Did we got walloped by Democrats when they shut the government down? Did we hear an apology from Democrats to the American people for deliberately misleading them over 40 days? Did we hear an admission that the only reason they shut down the government is to cover up for a catastrophic policy failure that they concocted and set an end date on? No, we didn't hear one of those things. Not one. Mr. Speaker, I'm not surprised. This is the kind of behavior that Americans have come to expect from Democrats. Has anyone ever noticed how Democrats have developed such a visceral reaction when confronted about their abdication of responsibility? They shut the government down, and the moment you call attention to their own actions, all they do is obfuscate and start shrieking about unrelated things. Scientists should study this at length and try to come up with a cure. It's a serious affliction, as was evidenced numerous times over in our Rules Committee meeting. It's well past time to reopen the government and end the Democrat-concocted nightmare that Americans have been living through for over 40 straight days. The CR before us will end that nightmare. It will get this legislative body and the entire nation moving once more. Democrats should grow a spine and accept responsibility for their own failures. I urge a yes vote on the rule, and I yield back.
Reserve.
Gentlelady from Minnesota reserves her time remaining. Gentleman from Massachusetts is recognized.
Mr. Speaker, you got to love these Republicans. The gentlelady from Minnesota says they weren't on vacation. I want to remind her, you haven't voted for 8 weeks. And most people define vacation as you don't have to show up to work and you get paid. That's exactly what Republicans did. They didn't show up to work and they got paid. It was a paid vacation. I now yield 1 minute to the gentlewoman from Texas, Ms. Johnson.
Gentlelady from Texas is recognized for 1 minute.
Thank you so much. I rise today in strong opposition to this bill. I'm a hell no on any legislation that strips health care away from millions of Texans. In my district, nearly 100,000 of my constituents rely on the Affordable Care Act's tax credits to pay for their coverage. Without these life-saving credits, many of them will go without health care at all. Every day during this shutdown, my office has heard from thousands of families across my district saying, "For the love of God, save my health care." And tucked away in this bill is a brazen payoff, millions of taxpayer dollars funneled to the benefit of a handful of senators, while families are struggling to afford groceries and health care. We are being asked to sign off on a deal that lines the pockets of the very people who wrote it. That is an insult to every hardworking taxpayer who expects honesty from their government. The contrast could not be clearer. Republicans are operating in the currency of cruelty and corruption, while Democrats are fighting with courage and compassion. The American people deserve better, and I will never stop fighting to protect the basic necessities every family needs to survive. I yield back.
Gentlelady from Minnesota.
Mr. Speaker, I yield 2 minutes to the gentleman from Georgia.
Gentleman from Georgia is recognized for 2 minutes.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. And, you know, the American farmer needs this bill to pass. The American soldier needs this bill to pass. Our air traffic controllers need this bill to pass. The men and women who protect us here in this Capitol and all federal law enforcement need this bill to pass. I'm one of those who represents a lot of federal employees, and they've been without a check for a long time, Mr. Speaker. This is very simple, very simple. It's way past time to open the government up. There are going to be a lot of excuses about coulda, shoulda, woulda, and you need to take this provision or that provision out, or they're going to vote to keep the government shut down. Well, let me tell you something. The vote today, it is straight up or straight down. You vote to open the government up today, or you vote to keep it closed. That's all there is to it. Now, as for the provision that's been mentioned a few times about the Senate language, I have introduced a piece of legislation already to repeal the Senate language, and I'm hopeful that we'll have a vote on that as soon as we get back. Mr. Speaker, I yield the remainder of my time.
Reserve.
Gentlelady from Minnesota continues to reserve her time. Gentleman from Massachusetts.
Mr. Speaker, you gotta love these guys. I mean, they're all introducing legislation to repeal provisions in a bill that they're going to vote yes on. I mean, you figure that out. Mr. Speaker, the previous question is the House Democrats' last attempt to make a change to this rule before it gets voted on. And I want to use this opportunity to talk about a last-minute provision that was slipped into the CR in the Senate. It's an outrageous giveaway to pad the pockets of 8 Republican senators. And it's one of the most corrupt things I've seen in my life. So if the House defeats the previous question, I will offer an amendment to the rule to consider as adopted an amendment to the continuing resolution offered by Representative Subramanian which would strike the corrupt giveaway out of the text of this bill so it does not make it into law. Mr. Speaker, this is a massive payday for Republicans. It would allow 8 of their senators to shovel millions of dollars into their own wallets. I'm talking cash money, not for their states, not for their constituents. No, for their own personal bank accounts. Why should a United States senator or any party get a special right that nobody else has? No state legislator, no governor, no judge, no citizen in the entire country has this right. But we are creating it for a handful of Republican senators. It is immoral. I'd say it's unconstitutional. It is wrong. And it's probably the most brazen theft and plunder of public resources ever proposed in the United States Congress. And it was tucked into this legislation. And I want to speak directly to Republicans who say they can't vote with us because it will delay the reopening of the government. First off, that's exactly what these corrupt senators were hoping you'd say. Second, we absolutely can send this back to the Senate. They can quickly strip it and send the bill to the president. They finished this package in less than 2 days. This is one small thing that needs to be deleted. It's easy, and it can be done very fast. But, and please spare me the excuses that we'll get this done next week with a new bill. Once this is law, that's it. It is signed into law forever. It will never change. It is permanent, and you voted for it. And Republicans all know that. So don't say you're going to pass some new bill next week to address this. That's just an excuse to do nothing that will fix it. Republicans moved at the speed of light to give tax breaks to billionaires, and the least they can do is give the same urgency to stop this shamelessly corrupt fleecing of the American people. Now, I get it. Trump is suing the U.S. government for $230 million, and I guess these senators want in on the action. They want their own payday. But I've never seen this level of grift, shameless corruption, and theft of public money in my entire life, ever. So, Mr. Speaker, I ask unanimous consent to insert the text of my amendment into the record along with extraneous material immediately prior to the vote on the previous question, and to discuss our proposal. I yield a minute to the gentleman from Virginia, Mr. Subramanian.
Without objection on the UC request, the chair will remind the gentleman from Massachusetts and others to please refrain from engaging in personalities toward members of the Senate. Gentleman is recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Thank you, Ranking Member McGovern. I mean, you know what people hate more than seeing their costs go up? Is seeing their costs go up while corrupt politicians line their pockets with taxpayer money. That's what they really hate. But that's what this bill does. Republican senators slipped into this bill a legal pathway for them to personally receive millions of dollars in taxpayer money for being investigated after January 6th. And the other side talks about fiscal responsibility and says there's no money for health care, but somehow there's taxpayer money for Republican senators. This is an ethics violation, this is a breach of trust, and it calls into question the very legitimacy of this institution. So I put forward an amendment to reject this corruption, but committee Republicans voted it down last night, and they said they knew it was corrupt, but that there was nothing that could be done, and that the system didn't work. Well, you are the system. And House Republicans promised to vote on this next week as a standalone bill, but there's no guarantee that the Senate will act. In fact, they probably won't act, right? So you have the power to join us in righting this wrong today. So let's take out this ridiculous kickback. Otherwise, a vote for this bill is a vote for corruption. I yield back.
Gentleman yields back. Gentlelady from Minnesota.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. And I never said, Mr. Speaker, that this bill was perfect. And not everyone agrees with the provision, and our colleague from Georgia had just mentioned and is already addressing it. But what we do agree on is that it is critically important to get the government open, and that's why we are here today. Getting our federal employees paid, getting our troops paid, getting SNAP back on track, getting our airports back to full capacity. Once this happens, we can tackle the issues and get back to really doing the things for the American people, not using their suffering as leverage, like the Democrat Whip Clark is willing to do. Democrats have spent weeks performing political theater by refusing to open government and continue to perform that political theater. But we need to prioritize the reopening of the government and stop the suffering that the Democrats want to use as leverage. And with that, I yield 2 minutes to the gentleman from New York.
Gentleman from New York is recognized for 2 minutes.
Mr. Speaker, I rise in strong support of this rule and ending this shutdown chaos. For more than 40 days, the American people have endured a painful and entirely avoidable government shutdown. Not because of policy differences, but because Senate Democrats and Chuck Schumer chose politics over people. And while Washington stalled, hardworking Americans paid the price. Our air traffic controllers went without pay. A system stretched thinner by the day, putting new strain on that system that put millions of lives at risk. Americans depend on them to keep our skies safe. In families who rely on SNAP and WIC, parents just trying to feed their kids were left wondering how they'd make it through another week. And at the same time, our border agents and our Coast Guard members, they continued to serve this country as their own families went without pay. And through it all, while everyday Americans carried the weight of the shutdown, Senate Democrats had chance after chance to end it. But instead, they chose to prolong the pain. That is not leadership, that's hypocrisy. It was never about budgets or priorities. It was about power. It's not about turning government on. For them, it's about turning government into performance, where the people paying the highest price are the ones furthest from Washington. For more than 40 days, families were used as political pawns and props, while those responsible stood in front of cameras pretending to solve the crisis that they created. I actually saw a member from my home state stand at a food bank, decry the fact that nutritional assistance was in question, then swear up and down that they would vote against ending this shutdown. That is the epitome of hypocrisy, and the American people deserve better than that. House Republicans did our job. We passed a clean continuing resolution weeks ago, the same kind of straightforward measure that should have been agreed to immediately to keep this government open. But Senate Democrats blocked that 14 times, prolonging this shutdown just to score points to their woke, angry mob. This measure before us today is the same bipartisan framework they could have passed 40 days ago. The only thing that has changed is the political calendar. So, Mr. Speaker, I urge my colleagues to support the rule, stand with the American people, the families of veterans and public servants who have carried the burden of this shutdown, and let's reopen our government, and let's get this country moving again. And I yield back, Mr. Speaker.
Gentleman from Massachusetts.
Mr. Speaker, I ask unanimous consent to insert into the record an article from ABC News entitled, "Inflation Climbs to the Highest Level Since January, Beef Prices Soar."
Without objection.
I request unanimous consent to insert into the record an article from the Washington Post entitled, "From Groceries to Gas, Americans Say They're Spending More Under Trump."
Without objection.
I ask unanimous consent to insert into the record an article from the New Republic entitled, "No, You're Wrong. Trump Spirals When Pressed on Rising Food Prices."
Without objection.
I ask unanimous consent to insert into the record an article from the New Republic entitled, "Trump Admits He Doesn't Care About Affordability as Economy Plunges."
Without objection.
I ask unanimous consent to insert into the record an article from MSNBC entitled, "Not a Big Issue, Republicans Shrug as Consumers Confront Healthcare Sticker Shock."
Without objection.
I ask unanimous consent to insert into the record an opinion article published in MSNBC entitled, "Trump's Argentina Bailout Once Again Puts America Last."
Without objection.
I ask unanimous consent to insert into the record an article from PBS entitled, "Trump Administration Working on Doubling Argentina Financing to $40 billion."
Without objection.
I ask unanimous consent to insert into the record an article from Forbes entitled, "Presidency Boosts Trump's Net Worth by $3 billion in a Year."
Without objection.
I ask unanimous consent to insert into the record an article from People.com entitled, "Donald Trump Hosts Great Gatsby-Themed Halloween Party as 42 million Americans Brace for SNAP Benefits to Expire."
Without objection.
I ask unanimous consent to insert into the record an article from the New York Times entitled, "Trump's Latest White House Makeover, the Lincoln Bathroom in Marble and Gold."
Without objection.
I ask unanimous consent to insert into the record an article from The Nation entitled, "The Bill to End the Shutdown is Full of Giveaways to Republicans."
Without objection.
And Mr. Speaker, I yield myself 15 seconds.
Gentleman is recognized for 15 seconds.
I'm sorry that the gentlelady thinks that trying to stop people's health care premiums from doubling and tripling and quadrupling is political theater, but we don't. And I don't have time to address all the BS coming from my colleagues across the chamber, but it's clear that this Republican leadership is not only failing to deliver on their promises, they're selling out at the expense of the basic needs of the American people. I reserve.
Time is reserved. Gentlelady from Minnesota.
Mr. Speaker, I yield 2 minutes to the gentleman from Texas.
Gentleman from Texas, Mr. Roy, is recognized for 2 minutes.
Thank the gentleman from Arkansas. I thank the gentlelady from Minnesota. And here we are on September 19th. House Republicans passed legislation which would have funded government through November 20th. Here we are on November 12th, and we are basically where we would have been had we just passed the bill that we passed in September. And what did we get for all of that? What happened over all these days? Well, my colleagues on the other side of the aisle were searching for a reason for voters to support them next November. They were searching for a cause. And we know this because there was intervening elections and a lot of rhetoric, but no result. We're here right now with Democrats having joined senators to send a bill over here to fund government through the end of January with 3 appropriations bills, which we worked through regular order, that keeps spending relatively flat, advances the priorities the American people sent us here to advance, to back up the president, who is securing the border, which he was sent to Washington to do, to restore our military to focusing on defending this nation rather than advancing woke priorities, which the American people sent him here to do, for us to continue to work to grow and to build this economy after 4 years of being wrecked with reckless spending, but also abhorrent policies. The American people are now saying, what on earth were Democrats doing? And my Democrat colleagues' response is health care, because it's the only default position they have is the default to health care. And the fact is, it's because they broke the system so badly that they are now coming and asking us to have the Treasury print money to then give out in order to enrich insurance companies with massive subsidies. That's the actual fact. And the American people understand this. And they recognize that they don't want insurance companies to be enriched, but they want to be able to go get the doctor of their choice. The American people understand this, and so do we. And we're here to open the government, and we're here to stand up for doctors and patients instead of insurance companies and big regulators. I support this legislation. I know my Republican colleagues do. The question really is, will Democrats, or will they wish to perpetuate the shutting down of government to enrich insurance companies? I yield back.
Gentleman from Massachusetts.
Well, a couple of things, Mr. Speaker. I don't think we want to be lectured by somebody who, over the years, has been the king of government shutdowns and who worked for a United States senator that pushed for a government shutdown and to object to the Affordable Care Act. But by the way, I just want to make it clear to everybody, this is a Republican shutdown. They control the White House, they control the House, they control the Senate. You know, this government shut down because they don't want to negotiate. It's their way or the highway. This is a Republican shutdown. They own it. I now yield 1.5 minutes to the gentleman from Maryland, the distinguished ranking member of the Judiciary Committee, Mr. Raskin.
Gentleman from Maryland is recognized for 1.5 minutes.
And thank you, Mr. Speaker. Thank you, Mr. McGovern. This bill, which they now call imperfect, contains the single most corrupt provision for legislative self-dealing that anyone in this chamber today has ever voted on. It is such an egregiously corrupt act of legislator self-enrichment and plunder of the taxpayer that not only did every single House Democrat oppose it in the Rules Committee last night, but multiple Republicans were denouncing it. That is, before they were summoned into a side room and instructed to vote for it, which they all proceeded to do. Now they're telling us, vote for it today, and they'll repeal it, well, maybe next week, or maybe the week after that, or maybe before Christmas, they'll repeal it. I've got a solution for you. If you don't like this corrupt provision, don't vote for it today. That will work. This is a great bill. A great bill, that is, if you think 8 Republican U.S. senators should have a right to collect at least $1 million in a jackpot bonanza payoff from the taxpayers simply because they were subject to the exact same rules all other Americans were subject to and are subject to now. And they don't propose to change those rules for anybody else, not for more than 300 million Americans, not for the members of the House of Representatives, not for governors and mayors, but for themselves. They want to deal themselves a special legal privilege. In this Republican class war, Great Gatsby economy where President Trump has made more than $3 billion since he reoccupied the White House, the federal building which he has proceeded to demolish in large part, where millions of Americans face losing their health care and their SNAP benefits, this provision is an affront to our taxpayers, to the rule of law, to everyone who believes. Could I ask for 15 seconds more? It is an affront to everyone who believes that we in public office must be the servants of the people, not the masters of the people who get special legal rights and privileges and multi-million-dollar payoffs. People who think that they have a right to better treatment than everybody else, like Ghislaine Maxwell in their prison camp where she gets room service, puppy time, and special gym privileges.
Gentlelady from Minnesota. She reserves her time. Gentleman from Massachusetts.
I yield 1 minute to the gentlewoman from Oregon, Ms. Bonamici.
Gentlelady is recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I rise today in opposition to this continuing resolution. I will not support a bill that will continue the Republicans' assault on Americans and their pocketbooks. At a time when Oregonians and Americans are already struggling with rising costs, this bill locks in devastating cuts to health care and drives up the cost, in many cases significantly. The assault on health care and the Republican shutdown more broadly, they're further proof that the first 10 months of this Trump administration have been chaotic, harmful, and completely out of touch with the needs of the American people. Donald Trump held an extravagant Great Gatsby party at Mar-a-Lago the night before SNAP benefits expired, while the administration and Republicans continue to ignore the needs of working families. That's not governing. They've abandoned their responsibility to bring down costs and grow the economy. And Mr. Speaker, this bill was already bad, but now they added this corrupt, get-rich-quick scheme to give hundreds of thousands of taxpayer dollars to Trump-aligned senators. That is outrageous. Oregonians and Americans deserve better. My colleagues should listen to their constituents, vote no, and come back to the table and join us in the work to make health care affordable and accessible to all. I yield back.
Gentlelady from Minnesota, with 14 and 1/2 minutes remaining.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. And Mr. Speaker, I yield 2 minutes to the gentleman from North Carolina.
Gentleman from North Carolina is recognized for 2 minutes.
Mr. Speaker, I rise today as we are in the process of ending the longest government shutdown in our nation's history, and to affirm that this Congress will get back to leading America into her next golden age. Over 40 days, that is how long the government has been closed. For over 40 days, Democrats here in this body and in the Senate have chosen chaos over our country. They chose to shut the government down because politics demanded it, not policy. The elites who dominate their party's decision-making are the ones least impacted by its decisions. Were the far-left activists and Democrats here in this body the ones not getting paychecks? No. Mr. Speaker, that was the air traffic controllers, our troops, and our Capitol police officers. When these same people passed Obamacare, were they the ones impacted by the law, or was it the middle-class teacher in North Carolina who could no longer keep their doctor? We all know the answer to that, Mr. Speaker, and across the nation, federal workers are working 2 and 3 jobs just to stay afloat. Also, Democrats could champion illegal aliens who exploit our compassion as they poison our communities with deadly fentanyl. That is not governing. That was extortion of the American taxpayer. But that ends today. Today, we are in the process of finally reopening the government, returning to the business of the people, and further implementing the mandate our constituents sent us here to deliver on. Democrats chose to have a month of political theater, but political shows don't do one thing to help make the cost of everyday items more affordable. It is time to govern and to focus on making America more affordable for the middle class. Mr. Speaker, I urge a yes vote on this rule, and with that, I'll yield back.
Gentleman from Massachusetts.
Mr. Speaker, we're getting lectured on governance by a guy who is just coming off an 8-week paid vacation. Give me a break. At this time, I'd like to yield 1.5 minutes to the gentlewoman from New Jersey, the next governor of New Jersey, Ms. Sherrill.
The gentlelady from New Jersey is recognized for 1 1/2 minutes.
Mr. Speaker, I rise in opposition to a rule for a bill that does nothing to protect over 450,000 New Jerseyans who will see their health care premiums skyrocket. I took my first oath to the Constitution when I was 18 and went to the Naval Academy. It's an oath to serve, to run toward the fight. And so I ran for Congress after I saw Washington Republicans attacking the Affordable Care Act. I promised I would take on the status quo. I would fight the big fights, because that's what people expect of their leaders. That's what people deserve from their leaders. And I'm proud of the wins that I've delivered as your representative for New Jersey's 11th District. Capping the cost of insulin and prescription drugs for seniors, funding the Gateway Tunnel, the PACT Act for veterans, flood mitigation projects, delivering for Picatinny Arsenal. You have trusted me, New Jersey, and last week you placed your trust in me again, electing me your 57th governor. So I ran on a similar promise, to take on anyone and stop at nothing, to lower cost and build opportunity for everyone. This will be my last speech in this chamber. I intend to submit my resignation next week and turn to protecting all of New Jersey. So my parting message to Jersey is, thank you. To my staff, thank you for your dedication to serving the 11th District of New Jersey. To my colleagues, do not let this body become a ceremonial red stamp from an administration that takes food away from children and rips away health care.
30 seconds.
Gentlelady's given another 30 seconds.
That rips health care away from people and takes food away from children. To the country, stand strong. As we say in the Navy, don't give up the ship. Thank you, and I yield back.
Gentlelady from Minnesota reserves.
Yes.
Gentleman from Massachusetts.
Mr. Speaker, I yield 1 minute to the gentleman from Rhode Island, Mr. Magaziner.
Gentleman from Rhode Island is recognized for 1 minute.
Mr. Speaker, House Republicans are back from their 54-day taxpayer-funded vacation. But don't get me wrong, they do know how to work hard. When billionaires wanted tax breaks, they moved mountains to make it happen. When Argentina needed a $40 billion bailout to help Trump's buddy, they moved quickly to make it happen at the White House. But when working people need help, when millions of Americans are seeing their health insurance costs double and triple, and Americans all across this country are feeling like they're going to have to go without health insurance for the first time in their lives because they can't afford it anymore and have to make that terrible decision about which of their family members they're going to cut off of their insurance, House Republicans are nowhere to be found. When Donald Trump's stupid tariffs are raising the price of groceries, the cost of coffee is up 40% over the last year, House Republicans are silent. When working people need help, they are absent. Shameful. So they will work when billionaires need tax cuts, when Argentina needs a bailout, but when working people need relief, they go on a taxpayer-funded vacation. Shameful, Mr. Speaker. Vote no on this budget. Do not cut the health care of the American people, and I yield back.
Gentlelady from Minnesota.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, and I yield 1 minute to the gentleman from New York.
Gentleman from New York is recognized for 1 minute.
The reason we know this is a Democratic shutdown is because of how angry they are that we're about to reopen the government, period. That's all you need to know. In 2023, Jerry Nadler said shutdown is really an extremist policy designed to appeal to an extremist base and hold the whole country hostage. That is exactly what the Democrats have done over the last 43 days. They have held the American people hostage, trying to extract insane things like free health care for illegal immigrants. If they were serious about tackling the health care affordability crisis in this country, then they would address the fundamental problem with Obamacare. Since Obamacare took effect, health care premiums have risen by 96%, and on the open market by 114%. When I asked Leader Jeffries to sign on to the 1-year extension of the premium tax credit, He refused. He stuttered, he stammered, he couldn't answer a single question because this shutdown was never about health care. It was always about appeasing a far-left radical base. Chuck Schumer said, every day gets better for us. Catherine Clark said, of course people will suffer. We want to use this as leverage. It is an embarrassment to this country. You should all be ashamed of yourselves for inflicting this pain on the American people, taking away food stamps from 42 million Americans, defunding WIC, not paying our troops, our federal employees, our air traffic controllers. It's a disgrace, and you should all hang your heads in shame. Vote yes to pass the bill and reopen the government.
All right. Let me remind my colleagues. I fully recognize that there's a lot of pent-up anxiety and emotions have been elevated somewhat, but please, in the interest of the decorum of this House, to direct your comments to the chair and do not engage in personalities toward the Senate, toward the President, and others. Gentleman from Massachusetts with 14 and 1/2 minutes remaining.
Yeah. Well, Mr. Speaker, let me just say the gentleman from New York sounds as extreme as his voting record. And I'd like to say to the gentleman who just spoke, by supporting this bill, he's betraying 7,000 constituents in his district who rely on the ACA to afford their health care. Boy, I'm glad he's not my representative. At this time, I'd like to yield 1 minute to the gentleman from New York, Mr. Kennedy.
Gentleman from New York is recognized for 1 minute.
Mr. Speaker, as the representative of Western New York, where so many people in my community, like others across the country, are already struggling to afford health care, I urge my colleagues to reject this disgraceful bill. As an occupational therapist, I know exactly who these cuts will hurt. I've heard from so many who are desperate for a lifeline, like Iris, a mom in Buffalo who's worried about how she'll keep her kids' health insurance, or Andy, a nursing home resident in Tonawanda who relies on Medicaid to get the services he needs, or the kids at Bourne Hava, a special needs school where I provided therapy, who depend on early intervention services. Donald Trump and congressional Republicans began their assault on the people of our country in the Big Ugly Bill. This bill further devastates health care and leaves millions of Americans to pray they don't get sick. Shame on anyone who goes along with it. This country deserves better. I'll be voting no, and I urge all of my colleagues to do the same. I yield back.
Gentlelady from Minnesota.
Reserve.
Reserves. Gentleman from Massachusetts.
Mr. Speaker, some big news and breaking news in the last hour. I'm proud to say that our newest colleague, Representative Adelita Grijalva, just became the 218th signature on the Massey Kana discharge petition to compel the release of the Epstein files. And to all my Republican colleagues who refuse to sign on, time is up. You need to figure out where you stand on this because you're about to go on record. Is your loyalty to Trump more important than going after pedophiles? Because make no mistake, these files will come out. It is no longer a question of if, only when, and whether the White House chooses to stand with the survivors or throw them under the bus. And at this time, Mr. Speaker, I'd like to yield 1 minute to the gentlewoman from Oregon, Ms. Dexter.
Gentlelady from Oregon is recognized for 1 minute.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I rise today in strong opposition to this rule and the underlying bill. As a physician who spent 20 years saving lives, I did not come to Congress to let health care be decimated by Congress. I came to fight for my constituents who deserve to be able to see a doctor they trust, afford their medication, and keep their families healthy. If House Republicans let the ACA tax credits expire, they are complicit in forcing Oregonians to make impossible choices, like whether to keep their insurance or put food on the table. As a physician, I know what comes next. People go without. They go uninsured, they delay care, and they skip refills. They get sicker, and sometimes they end up in medical debt that is devastating. The cost of living is already too damn high. Republicans are committed to cutting your care. They patently rejected amendments to protect Americans, ignoring millions of American families who are desperate for relief. I will be an absolute no on the rule and the underlying bill, and I refuse to give up on ensuring affordable health care for all. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I yield back.
Gentlelady from Minnesota.
Mr. Speaker, I just wanted to say just really quickly, the ranking member mentioned the discharge petition, and that he's very proud that it has 218 signatures, but not that long ago, today, we had a UC that would have moved that along, would have moved that resolution along over to the Senate, and I believe the Democrats objected to it. So it seems more like a political stunt than it does that they actually wanted to have that resolution moved along, because if they had not objected, it would have gone on its way and they would have accomplished what they wanted to do. So I don't see their real desire to have the resolution passed. I see it more of, like I said, a political stunt. And it certainly is actually a moot point, given that oversight is already releasing many of those files. As a matter of fact, I believe they've done tens of thousands of them, but I believe this morning they did another 20,000 files. So they are being released, and this all seems for naught. But with that, Mr. Speaker, I would like to yield 1 minute to the gentleman from California.
Gentleman from California is recognized for 1 minute.
Mr. Speaker, Jimmy Fallon offered Democrats this pro tip. If you're going to call it the Republican shutdown, you're not supposed to get mad that it's ending. Anyone who remembers their schoolhouse rock knows that once the House originates an appropriation, the Senate must either amend it or pass it. Now, the House did its job on September the 19th with a simple appropriation that made no policy changes. It merely kept the government operating at current levels while we finished debating priorities. Democrats deliberately blocked the Senate from acting, demanding $1.5 trillion of new spending as a ransom. Finally, thank God, 8 of them put country ahead of party and voted to end this madness. Now, hearing the bitter recriminations from our leftist colleagues, it seems unlikely we'll see much bipartisanship today. But with or without them, we will reopen the government tonight and get back to addressing the challenges that confront our country. I yield back.
Gentleman from Massachusetts with 11 minutes remaining on his side, 9 minutes on the majority side.
Yeah, Mr. Speaker, I'm surprised that the gentlelady brought up the UC request, but I'm glad she did, because I want the record to be clear. I didn't hear any objection on the floor. The Republican chair basically ruled it as an improper UC request, and so that is why it didn't move forward. And but I do know this, because I'm on the Rules Committee, and I do know the gentlelady time and time again voted against releasing the Epstein files. And I know my Republican friends are hoping that they don't have to go on record because they don't want to get Trump upset at them. But the bottom line is every single Republican will go on record, and you will have to make clear whether you're on the side of a pedophile or whether you're on the side of the victims.
The gentleman from Massachusetts is reminded to direct his comments to the chair, please.
Thank you,
You may
Mr.
continue.
I now yield 1 minute to the gentlewoman from Washington, Ms. Jayapal.
Gentlelady from Washington is recognized for 1 minute.
Mr. Speaker, I rise to oppose this bill that allows health insurance premiums for 22 million American families to skyrocket and raises health care costs for everyone. Trump and his Republican cult of followers in Congress have unleashed shameful crisis of cruelty and corruption on the American people. First, they slashed Medicaid by $1 trillion, kicked 15 million Americans off of health care, set up the playboard for rural hospitals to shutter, all so that you could give $7 trillion in permanent tax breaks to their billionaire buddies. Then they refused to negotiate with Democrats to extend the Affordable Care Act tax credits so that 22 million Americans wouldn't have to choose between health care and rent. And when we refused to go along with that, they caused this 45-day Republican shutdown, illegally refused to pay SNAP benefits for the hungry, and illegally canceled flights, throwing the country into chaos. Trump and Republicans want to make you poorer and sicker. While Trump builds his gilded ballrooms, protects pedophiles, pardons those who buy his meme coins, and lets Americans starve. Shame on you. I'm a hell no on this bill.
Gentlelady from Minnesota.
Mr. Speaker, I yield 2 minutes to the gentleman from Tennessee.
Gentleman from Tennessee is recognized for 2 minutes.
Mr. Speaker, I rise today to oppose the Senate's provision that allows senators to make financial gain off illegal government surveillance. 3 things can be true at once, Mr. Speaker. The first truth is this: the shutdown has to end. The American people and countless Tennesseans I represent are suffering and experiencing real pain. This record-breaking Schumer Democratic shutdown was completely avoidable, and it was completely carried out for political purposes. The second truth is that the last administration, led by Joe Biden and his auto pen, unfairly surveilled conservatives and conservative members of Congress. That included sitting United States senators. Yet, Mr. Speaker, the third thing I would note is that the American taxpayer has suffered enough because of the last administration. No one in this body should support allowing senators to sue and collect from taxpayers because the FBI went rogue under President Biden. But don't get me wrong, the overreach is more than troubling. It's unfathomable that the Department of Justice was weaponized in this way. I fully support holding those radical agents accountable and the ongoing investigations into their misdeeds. Yet no elected official should profit from the political calculation of left-wing bureaucrats and judges. Mr. Speaker, the folks I represent are still reeling from historic Bidenflation, the effects of the border crisis, and the regulatory agenda of the last administration. It is shameful to ask them to shoulder the burden of paying U.S. senators $500,000 or more for those misdeeds. With that, I yield back, Mr. Speaker.
Gentleman from Massachusetts.
Mr. Speaker, I yield 1 minute to the gentleman from Texas, Mr. Green.
Gentleman from Texas is recognized for 1 minute.
And still I rise, Mr. Speaker. I rise to call to my colleagues' attention that they are no longer claiming that this is a clean CR. The truth is that it is a dirty, filthy, stealthy CR that has been contaminated with millions of dollars for people who have not earned it, but rather who want to take it from the taxpayers of this country because they have concluded somehow that they have been harmed when no harm has been proven or brought to our attention. I believe that health care for all is important because we in the Congress have the best health care in the world. Yet people with the best health care in the world do not see fit for persons who need it, who are among the least, the last, and the lost, to acquire health care, something that they have. Health care is becoming wealth care for too many people in this country. We need to extend the subsidies. We need to make sure that everybody who can get to a doctor gets care. This is not a poor country. I refuse to take a poison pill and have you tell me that I'll regurgitate it next week. The poison pill.
Gentleman's time has expired. Gentlelady from Minnesota reserves. Gentleman from Massachusetts.
I inquire how many more speakers the gentlelady has, because she doesn't seem to have very many.
I believe we have one more, Mr. Speaker.
Okay. All right. We have several. Mr. Speaker, I yield 1 minute to the gentlewoman from New York, Ms. Ocasio-Cortez.
Gentlelady from New York is recognized for 1 minute.
It is great. It is great that Democrats have a line of people who are willing to fight for working class Americans from coast to coast in this country, because God forbid that we have a member of the Republican caucus who stands up and actually wants to extend the Affordable Care Act so that people with cancer, insulin, and issues across all sorts of health care issues across this country have their health insurance protected and extended throughout 2026. It is unconscionable that what we are debating right now is legislation that will give 8 members of the United States Senate over $1 million apiece. And we are robbing people of their food assistance and of their health care to pay for it. How is this even on the floor? How can we, as members of Congress, Republican or Democrat, vote to enrich ourselves by stealing from the American people? That is what this legislation does. In fact, Senator Graham just went before the press earlier today saying he was going to seek well over $1 million from the American people from this. We cannot support it, and we cannot stand for it. Thank you.
Gentlelady's time has expired. Gentlelady from Minnesota.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. And I just wanted to point out to some of my colleagues that, you know, the Democrat government shutdown stopped the SNAP benefit. So if they were very concerned about those, about making sure that people had their nutritional assistance, they wouldn't have shut down the government, because that is what caused it. And with that, Mr. Speaker, I yield 1 minute to the gentleman from Texas.
Gentleman is recognized for 1 minute.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. It was great to hear from the new leader of the Democrat Party, Mrs. Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez. Unfortunately, we didn't also get to hear from their other leader, Mr. Zoran Mamdani. Mr. Speaker, I'm going to be proud this evening to vote to reopen the federal government.
House will be in order.
Mr. Speaker,
Gentlemen.
for 40 days, the Democrats shut our government down to pursue unrealistic policy proposals that they know the American people do not want. Mr. Speaker, the American people do not want health care for illegal aliens. They do not want our tax dollars funding left-wing media outlets, and they do not want to drive up our debt $1.5 trillion as part of a short-term continuing resolution. Mr. Speaker, the last 40 days have been nothing but pure political nihilism, and I'm glad that this nightmare is over so that we can get back to work on behalf of the American people. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I yield back.
Gentleman from Massachusetts. Gentleman from Massachusetts.
I reserve.
Gentleman reserves his time. Gentlelady from Minnesota.
Reserve.
Reserves. Who seeks time?
Well, Mr. Speaker, let me first of all just say to the gentlelady, this is Republican shutdown. It didn't need to happen. All you need to do is extend the ACA tax credit so that people wouldn't get screwed on their health insurance bills. But I also point out to her that the President of the United States illegally withheld SNAP benefits. And two federal judges, basically two court orders, backed us up on that. And he's the first president ever in history to actually shut off food benefits to people during a shutdown. Shame on him. I now yield 1 minute to the gentleman from California, Mr. Khanna.
Gentleman from California is recognized for 1 minute.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, our country is at a moral crossroads. Just today, it comes out that billionaires are worth $8 trillion, more than 50% of Americans combined. And what does the president do? He decides he doesn't have the money for the American people. He's going to starve the American people to give $40 billion to the corrupt libertarian leader in Argentina. $9 billion would have fed the American people. How is that America first? And then he says, I don't care about the cab driver who's paying $2,600 now per month in health insurance as opposed to $44, because I don't want to save the 20 million Americans who are going to face high premium increases. How is that America first? We need national health insurance in this country. We need to tax billionaires in this country. We need to fund SNAP in this country, and we need to stop funding Argentina and corrupt foreign leaders.
Gentlelady from Minnesota.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. And I just wanted to address for just a second the health care issue that the Democrats continue to bring up and act like this had anything to do with everyone in the country's premiums, because we are talking about the COVID-era Affordable Care Act's COVID-era subsidies. So this is not what is affecting other people's premiums, other than those folks that qualify for those COVID-era premium subsidies. That's it. They continue to make it sound like this is responsible for every kind of increase that people are seeing. And so the Affordable Care Act's original subsidies will remain in place. So that's the original subsidies, ensuring that millions still qualify for the income-based tax credits and capping out-of-pocket costs relative to income. It's the COVID era. I can't say that enough. It is the COVID era subsidies that are in question here. Premium increases are actually driven by multiple factors, including medical inflation, provider consolidation, and rising drug costs. But to actually reduce premiums That's what we must address. And we must have comprehensive discussions about that, not just political theater and sound bites. We have to actually sit down and have those discussions, and that's what getting the government back open will do. I reserve.
Gentlelady reserves her time. Gentleman from Massachusetts.
Mr. Speaker, the ACA polls at 65%. Donald Trump is at 37%. I now yield 1 minute to the gentlewoman from Massachusetts, Ms. Presley.
Gentlelady from Massachusetts is recognized for 1 minute.
Mr. Speaker, I rise today on behalf of every elder who can't afford their prescription, every parent who went to work hungry so their child could eat. In the United States of America, there is no lack of resource, only a deficit of empathy, political will, and courage. At its best, government is a backstop, a compassionate steward of the public good. At its best, government catches people when they stumble in a moment of hardship. At its best, government does right by the people, all the people. Struggle does not discriminate, Mr. Speaker. Hardship is not a character flaw and has zero to do with work ethic. Every single person is one diagnosis, one layoff away from hardship. Life can change at an instant. What we are bearing witness to is not only a lack of political courage, but it is a fundamental betrayal of the people. Incompetence and indifference to the suffering of our constituents and our neighbors. The shame and the sham of it all. Any member of Congress who would vote to deny a child a meal or medication, it is child abuse and neglect. I ought to file a 51A on you for that. Every person in this chamber, every person in our country has lost a loved one to cancer, and yet you would vote to deny people life-saving cancer treatment and research. Republicans control the House, the Senate, and the White House, and with the majority, you have chosen to enact harm to make people hungrier, poorer, sicker, and less safe. The shame and the shame of it all. You, the people, deserve better. We, the people, deserve better, and I won't stop fighting until you get it.
Gentlelady from Minnesota.
Prepared to close.
Gentlelady is prepared to close. She has 4 minutes remaining. Gentleman from Massachusetts.
Yeah, I'm not. So I'd like to yield 1 minute to the gentleman from Wisconsin, Mr. Pocan.
Gentleman from Wisconsin is recognized for 1 minute.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Yes, the federal government will officially reopen with the House vote today. But here's what won't happen. We won't protect the 22 million people paying more for the Affordable Care Act, or the 15 million people losing their health care outright due to Republican actions in the big ugly law, nor will we stop the health care rate increases for everyone in this country. And we won't be restoring food assistance today for millions of Americans who benefit from SNAP because House Republicans voted to cut the #1 program that keeps kids and seniors out of poverty by over $180 billion. Nor will we be able to roll back the tax cuts for billionaires and your GOP donors that you funded by gutting those health care and food programs. But I sure hope you're tanned and rested after your 8-week paid vacation, because you're going to need it. Democrats are going to continue fighting every single day for people's health care and food benefits, and we're going to be on you day after day until we get it done. Vote no. I yield back.
Gentleman yields back his time. Gentlelady from Minnesota.
I'm prepared to close, Mr. Speaker.
Gentleman from Massachusetts.
I'm not quite yet, so I yield 1 minute to the gentleman from Maryland, Mr. Olszewski.
Gentleman from Maryland is recognized for 1 minute.
Mr. Speaker, this funding deal is why Americans have lost faith in Congress. It does absolutely nothing to address the crushing cost of health care and what amounts to a massive tax hike on working families. It does absolutely nothing to stop President Trump from canceling the very funding we would provide, something he's already done again and again. But here's what it does. It allows senators to write themselves, and only themselves, million-dollar checks because their phone records were legally subpoenaed, checks paid for by American taxpayers. It's corruption at a whole new level. With bribery and insider trading, someone breaks the law. Here, Congress is writing a law that protects and funds corruption. It's brazen and disgusting in an effort to legalize corruption, and anyone who votes for this CR is complicit in that corruption. If government still belongs to the people and not the powerful, we must reject this self-serving scam. I yield.
Gentleman yields back his time. Gentlelady from Minnesota still prepared to close. Gentleman from Massachusetts with 2.5 minutes remaining.
So I'll close, Mr. Speaker, for our side. Mr. Speaker, I don't have enough time to rebut all the absurd claims made by the other side. Suddenly, they all have an opinion on health care. They had a decade to come up with a plan, and they came up with nothing. But I'm glad they finally acknowledged that this is a dirty Sierra that shovels millions of dollars into the pockets of Republican politicians. They hate this bill so much that they're all going to vote for it. They say that we shut the government down. Really? The last time I checked, Republicans are in charge around here. We heard for months about their mandate. They control the House, the Senate, and the White House. They have a duty to keep the government open, and they failed. They did not have the votes. They refused to negotiate with us because we wanted to help regular people instead of billionaires. And now they want to blame us for the consequences of their own actions? What the hell is wrong with them? Give me a frigging break. America is the richest country in the history of the world. We are blessed with an abundance of so much. There should not be an affordability crisis. Every single person in this country should be able to have a good job, a living wage, affordable food and health care, and have a shot at a better future. That's what I'm fighting for. That's what we're fighting for. That's how I want to make America great. That's the Democratic vision for what this country could be. And from a moral perspective, from a set of values, we believe it is immoral to have a system that gives so much to just a few billionaires while depriving so many of the basic things they need to live a good life. And it is clear to me after this debate that Republicans do not share those same values. And I'm going to fight like hell. We are going to fight like hell because I believe in America. We believe in America. And we believe that the hopes and the dreams of the American people will prevail. And with that, I yield back.
Gentleman yields back his time. Gentlelady from Minnesota with 4 minutes remaining to close.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. And as we wrap up this debate, I want to take a moment to cut through the noise from our colleagues, from our colleagues on the left. Instead of focusing on the legislation before us, they're resorting to fear tactics and tossing out false claims about what this shutdown is really about. The CR would have kept the government open to continue and finish the appropriations process. And yet, the Democrats refused and instead chose to shut down the government. And you know, my colleague mentions values. Democrats claim that our values are different, and Democrat Wick Clark said, of course there will be families that are going to suffer, but it is one of the few leverage times we have. So if that's the values they're talking about, I don't share those values. I won't make the American people suffer, whether it be their SNAP payments, whether it be keeping air traffic controllers paid, whether it's paying our troops. Making the American people suffer is not the values that I share. And for the record, Republicans did not cause this shutdown, and we've not been on vacation. I've been splitting my time between D.C. and the district, as I mentioned before, meeting with constituents in both, meeting with federal agencies, hosting a teletown hall, and I know how hard my Republican colleagues have been working for their constituents and the American people. It was the Democrats who shut down the government when they refused to support a clean CR that would have kept the lights on and protected critical services. And now it's the Democrats who continue to shift the blame. Now, getting back to the issue at hand, let's talk about what this bill actually does. H.R. 5371 restores the funding for SNAP and WIC. It reimburses the contingency reserves to make sure that programs remain stable and reliable. Actually, President Trump moved $300 million of tariff revenue to fund WIC during the shutdown. Republicans are the ones protecting food security and not playing games with it. This bill also delivers for our farmers and ranchers and for rural development and invests in the community that feed this country and keep the economy strong. It supports our troops and federal workers. It ensures our service members and their families have the support they need, and it honors the promises we have made to those who have served. And yes, it reopens the government, restores stability, and resumes regular order. So let's be honest about what a yes vote means. A yes vote is a vote for veterans care. A yes vote is a vote for SNAP and WIC. A yes vote is a vote for $700,000 a fire engine in Ranking Member McGovern's district, and $1 million for the Navajo Nation Community Development Division in Representative Ledger Fernandez's district. A yes vote is for farmers. A yes vote is for our troops and for federal workers. And yes, it is for reopening the government. And a no vote? Well, that's a vote against all of that, including the development of a wastewater treatment facility in Mr. Negus's district, and $1.5 million in watershed conservation in Representative Clark's district. It's a vote against federal workers, it's a vote against health care, it's a vote against feeding hungry children, and it's a vote against common sense. Mr. Speaker, with that, I yield back the balance of my time, and I move the previous question.
Question is on ordering the previous question on the resolution. Those in favor say aye. Those opposed, no. Opinion of the chair, the ayes have it.
Mr. Speaker,
Gentleman from Massachusetts.
Hearing aid, I think. I asked for the yeas and nays.
Yeas and nays are requested. Those favoring a vote by the yeas and nays will rise. Sufficient number having risen, the yeas and nays are ordered. Members will record their votes by electronic device. Pursuant to Clause 9 of Rule 20, the chair will reduce to 5 minutes the minimum time for any electronic vote on the question of adoption of the resolution. This is a 15-minute vote.